Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on Channel 1 Television. We're live tonight with a big debate. The Ghana Cedi is the world's talking point. It's appreciated against the US dollar by 18% year to date. It's beaten all records in a long time. There's a massive debate in Ghana occasioned by the former vice president who says the government doesn't have a single policy to even prove that they are behind this Cedi's surge. Government is having none of that. The president has responded, as has the Minister of Finance. Tonight, I have a very big debate. I'll be speaking to close economic minds from the two political sides, and I'll bring a referee from academia to see if we can resolve the issue. Who should take credit for the appreciation of the Ghana Cedi? Is it the Bawumia Foundation laid under MPP, or is it the Mahama magic with the reset? Send us your comments via WhatsApp on this number we'll put on the screen shortly. We'll be right back with the debaters live. Stay with us.
Do you want a healthy smile?
Are you anxious about dental visits? Do you often cancel or reschedule your dental appointments to avoid the stress? Hi, I'm Tanya from Bethel Dental Ghana. We understand that dental anxiety is real and can be overwhelming, but it shouldn't stand in the way of getting the dental care that you need. Introducing Conscious Sedation Dentistry. Conscious sedation dentistry options ensure a calm and relaxed experience for patients to receive the necessary dental care with less stress. This means you do not need an escort to accompany you home. Nitrous oxide helps you to feel calm and comfortable while still being able to respond and follow directions. Bethel Dental Clinic, your partner in relaxed dentistry for a healthier, happier smile.
Healthy smile.
Where to get polytank?
Oh, and you're up fine.
Go straight.
Oh, I want to left, right.
And you press right. Ghana na ye wono. So when you do more, any data. Oh no! Abe, na here. Me pe polytank ato. Enu tin ta menu aba otu pe bia be na ba heju. O food pe bia e de enjoy ye kura.
Akuya bulambu kotoman. Emu ha.
Like they took my eyes. Go to the distributor and you give the original polytank. You get a sound?
Polytank. Papananka sankasa.
Fire pomudi ni agobio Ghana fuani age efri say ya your local spices na ya frafra dia ya sankofa natural spice
me de go me jollof mu ni mi sti wa hodoma e ma ne dance
Stanley the barbecue the go on
sankofa natural spices and one you use 100% natural said the happen
Adofo mamunye huge mistake sankofa natural spices Didi
FDA ejedi nkratu yatu
Remember who we are seeing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her 20 ebitiminya prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu na dia obefamu. Actually, this is not my fault. And to wada, entina medi mani Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center, Madame Home, facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear our system no. Ye nro ne so de natural into we koso afa amaye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Welcome back. So tonight we're live with a debate. We call it exchange rate politics. It appears the exchange rate is now the most talked about economic indicator. Indeed, the former vice president made it a big issue because he said in the past that when the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. So it's a big topic, and as we speak, the Ghana Cedi is selling, if you check Google Finance, 11.89 to the dollar. The BOG itself, as of yesterday, was around 12.1 Cedi to the dollar, and it keeps moving. Bloomberg is also looking at 11.9. The Cedi has appreciated year to date to the US dollar 18.8%, 18.8 strengthening against the dollar. So that's very, very strong. If you look at the chart behind me, it's quite clear that the Cedi is beating all records. The other interesting thing is that the Cedi's performance seems to align with inflation. So if I show you an inflation chart, you would also notice that inflation is trending downwards from upwards of 54% in 2022, a mini peak of 23.8 end of year is now 21.2. It's at its lowest in 8 months. So inflation is trending down. So somehow the Cedi strengthening is also bringing inflation down, which is really good. Interest rates are also coming down. I won't show you those charts, but we know that, for example, the T-bill rate is very, very low, and it's actually much lower than even the policy rate. As I speak to you, the 3-day policy meeting of the MPC is happening. So they'll be discussing all of this. I'm sure at break they'll be watching this debate because they would like to hear from 2 of my guests. In fact, all 3 guests. Very interesting. Now, what has triggered this debate is not that we are not happy that the Cedi is appreciating. The Vice President has taken part of his visits to the UK. I believe he was at Cambridge and other places. And he made a very interesting statement that has set the cut among the pigeons within the political party. So here's Dr. Bawumia speaking in the UK on his views about the currency's appreciation.
The appreciation of the Cedi that we have seen recently. I think one of the things that if you ask a simple question to the NDC to point out exactly what policy they have implemented that has resulted in the appreciation of the Cedi, they cannot tell you one that has been implemented, not sort of talked about, but actually implemented. They cannot tell you one such policy. They only passed their budget in March. They've not even issued any contracts and paid for anything, pretty much. So you cannot ascribe what is happening to the currency to a policy that they have implemented. There's no such policy that has been implemented that has had that impact yet. For me, we had anticipated the impact of gold in this economy. I talked about it when we got into dire straits in 2022. Bank of Ghana had bought $5 billion worth of gold. After all the noise of the election, people are paying attention to our reserves. That is one thing, which we have built to 30 tons. Secondly, you've mentioned that the US dollar itself is on the decline globally. And that has also strengthened. If you go to Zambia, for example, the kwacha has gained a lot of ground also because you have the US dollar declining in value because of what is happening in the US with all of that. So I think those are critical. And then there's the third element is that they are not spending. I mean, if you are managing an economy, you have to pay your bills. They are not paying IPPs, for example. This is why the doomsday is so acute. And they are not paying contractors. So when you are not spending, there's less pressure on your currency. So those are some of the reasons why you are seeing an appreciation of the currency.
So that was the former Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. The President has also been speaking about this, and he's obviously, you wouldn't say he was directly responding, but quite clearly it's in the same frame of thought. So here's President Mahama explaining why the Cedi has been doing well recently.
Which depreciated by 19.2% in 2024, has shown signs of recovery, appreciating by 3.9% against the US dollar by the end of April 2025. Our gross international reserves have improved further from $8.98 billion in December 2024 to $10.6 billion by April 2025. This is equivalent to almost 5 months of import cover.
We'll bring you a longer video later on. My guests are in studio. I have Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru Al-Hassan. He's MP for Wale Wale, which is essentially the constituency of Dr. Bawumia. And he's also, I don't know how to call him, an economic advisor to the former vice president, or a former economic advisor to the former vice president. So you clarify. So are you the former economic advisor to him while he was in office?
Yeah, so I was the advisor to the former vice president once he was in office. Yeah.
So now you are MP for Wale Wale. You can't combine the two positions.
That's right. I can combine the two, but except to say that I'm not appointed as
okay. Has he appointed his team yet?
Yeah, I think he has gotten, some people were supposed to be submitted to the office of the president as his aides, just in line with the demo. So some staff haven't submitted.
But ordinarily, a sitting MP may not have the time to do that.
Ordinarily, but you remember Gideon Boako is in Parliament, he's still supporting the vice president.
So he's still with him in London?
He's still with him in London, so...
So Gideon was his spokesperson and you were his economic...
Technical economic advisor.
Technical economic advisor. Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. I'll let you greet Wale Wale people later. Yeah. We also have Professor Sharif Khalid Mahmood Khalid, who is the economic policy advisor to the current vice president, correct?
Yeah.
So basically the job he was doing, you're doing it now.
Kind of.
That's interesting. But you are not in parliament.
I'm not in
parliament.
And
when you were doing, you were not in parliament.
Oh, yeah, so okay. Maybe he's going to go to parliament.
So maybe the job is too difficult to do with parliament.
Well, I don't know. Can you combine them?
Well, you can combine.
Are you seeking
The truth is that you cannot be serving as a current, you are more or less Article 71 office holder as an economic advisor to the president or vice president. And if you are going to be in parliament, that is another...
Too many things.
So you cannot, the workload, you cannot do two, it will not be prudent to be employed by the same, drawing from the same consolidated fund for the purpose. So
meanwhile, you're doing double work.
Double work. So
for single pay.
Yeah, that cannot happen. I just.
So so it's better he should just concentrate on this job.
Wear one cap. I mean,
all right. We will be joined. We will be joined.
Come back.
We will be joined by Professor Godfrey Bokwing, who is an interesting guy because I knew him from the university. Started as so it's both like a finance and economics guy at the same time, right? So he's an economist and professor of finance. All right, so I think do you tilt towards more finance or economics?
I'm more economics.
You are more economics and you are more finance.
Accounting and finance.
Oh, that's an interesting. So Bokwing is the combination. Why on earth is the former vice president talking about this at this time? Some will say it's too early. We haven't seen the full length of the snake. Why is he even, as they say in Ghana, putting his mouth in this business this early?
Yeah, so like you said, let me say good evening to your cherished viewers and to the people of Wale Wale. Again, it's always an opportunity to serve them. So whenever we have this opportunity, we want to express our gratitude to them. The vice president, as part of his tour, he went to the IDU and then went to Cambridge, where he was also meeting some Ghanaian community and then party supporters. He expressed view on the region topic, and you all agree that over the last 2 weeks, the topical issue within the shores and for us as a country, good news, but because of also the politics of sometimes the results, the vice president used the opportunity to comment on the development in the country. And the development was to the fact that we are experiencing an appreciation of our currency in contrast distinction to the United States dollar, which is more or less a vehicle currency or the currency which we trade with. Now, the vice president's view was to the fact that if you ask the government as to one single policy they have done, you find them wanting for answers in the sense that they can clearly say that this was not within the economic spheres, but we introduced it, and that is what is leading to the result. Because, you see, we've been lamenting about the structure of the Ghanaian economy to the fact that if something radical and significant so is not done about the nature of our economy, we'll continue to have this perennial depreciation of our currency. So within that context, the vice president stated that, well, we are having an appreciation of our Cedi, but that result we are seeing cannot just be the factor of this particular government put it in place. Because you recall that just in March, when they were presenting the State of the Nation, and I remember I debated the same thing with my brother on this same platform, to the effect that the economic fundamentals were not that bad. We argued same, and we made our point clearly that, look, the foundation that was laid, even though we're coming from a crisis where the economy was virtually in the abyss, we are now moving away, and then the economy was in a good footing. And so, therefore, our position was much better for this current government to manage. But they argue strongly that the economy was criminally mismanaged and that there was nothing we have to brace for, a difficult road. So all this in context, the Vice President made a point that, one, the reason why, and let me make this point, look, is we will understand that, and you will also understand that correlation does not necessarily mean causation. It is quite established in econometrics, and even if you lead criminal law, those to the causal relationship, they will tell you that the factors that are causing an event may not be those that we are seeing. In all this discussion, no single person has been able to run a causal relationship between the macroeconomic fundamentals and the movement of the exchange rate. We are all assuming that the determinants of the exchange rate, i.e. demand and supply, and demand is influenced by certain factors, i.e. availability of the currency, 2, expectation, 3, the relative price of goods and services in other countries. So all these determinants, we can all put them there and discuss that. But so far, everyone is picking and choosing as to the possible causes of the appreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. But we all know that, try learning that you cannot have supply of dollar be more than the demand, and then the price of the dollar will not come down. That is quite trial learning. So one of the factors that are resulted that we can all agree on is the foreign reserves, because that shows the supply of hard currency within the domestic economy. Now, how do we account for this current, i.e. over 10 billion of reserves? You have to look at the trajectory. How much of this amount was added by the new patriotic government and how much of it is being added by the current government? If you realize that over 80% or about 80% of the foreign reserves were added or were accumulated by the previous government, and only some 20% is added by the, you cannot say that the availability of forex within the local economy that is contributing to the depreciation of the United States dollar against the Ghanaian cedi is by the NDC, because the NDPP contributed 80% of that availability, and that availability determines the prices of dollar to the cedi. That is one reason. 2, we then look at expectation. How is expectation formed? Because you see, we have not been able to model again expectation to know how much expectation is feeding into this whole dynamic of exchange rate depreciation or appreciation. But we do know that expectation is an anchor of, 1, availability. If people are aware that we have forex available and we will get it as and when we demand it, they are going to have good perception of the outlook. 2, if they realize the government is consolidating its fiscal policy, it can also signal expectation. If there's also this particular sense that, well, in the coming days, trade in the United States, for instance, the economy that is holding the dollar is the United States economy. Now, if business there is not doing well, there's no appetite for them to hold the United States dollar. So they will move into other currency. So that is another reason. And the Vice President, knowing very well that the MPP government contributed to the positive expectation or positive outlook of the cedi, would again say that, look, MPP government made this possible. The third reason that we need to note is that the Vice President had again noted that if government is not spending, unless of course the NDC is saying that decision not to spend is also a policy, right? If that is an argument, then we can all agree that then the Vice President was wrong to say that no single policy has been introduced. But I don't see the decision of government not to spend to be a policy, in a sense that in the 2025 budget, certain goods and services were budgeted for. Those goods were budgeted for in anticipation that within the fiscal year, government is going to spend on those. Like it or not, at the end of the fiscal year, depending on the availability of revenue, you are going to spend on that. If the budget was cutting down expenditure, it's one thing, because it will not even reflect in the budget. But once the budget contemplates those expenditure lines and put them in the budget, you must necessarily spend on them. Otherwise, the projection on your economic growth is going to be crippled. Now, the government is deciding not to spend. Even statutory payments have not been done. Even if like compensation that are due certain members of parliament, Article 71 holders, have not been paid, then goods and services that were procured and the government projected and budgeted for same in the budget have not been paid. Now, even new contracts that were contemplated within the budget have not been awarded, talk less of being executed. Now, if you put that into the equilibrium, into the equation, you realize that the decision not to spend is contributing to the relative stability or depreciation of the United States dollar to the currency because there is no pressure for people to then want to change either currency or local currency into the United States dollar. So that was another point. The last point the Vice President also noted was to the effect that, even on the line of payment, was the IPP projects. We are experiencing doomsaw now, and the minister responsible for energy and green transition is complaining about the fact that we are going to have imminent collapse of agreement to the effect that Car Power, they are owing about $400 million, and that we are having to the tune of about $2 billion in the energy sector alone. Now, let's look at the accumulation of foreign reserves and the amount that is outstanding. The Gold Board reports that between January and then April, some 2.7 billion were accumulated and added to the gold, to the foreign reserves of our country. Now, energy payment alone is going to consume that. We're not even going to the over 500 million demand for crude oil that is supposed to come in. We're not even talking about other people who are going to China to trade. All those, if we put that into the picture, then you realize that if government begins to spend, then we will not have the same picture. Then the last thing was the fact that, look, all the time, people talk about externality or exogenous factor, and I know over the period, in your line of duty and you are host of this particular economic-related matter and financial matter, these exogenous factors have been explained, and people have used it to justify either their inefficiency or their efficiency. Now, how does the price of gold being a factor of government policy? Virtually, it's an external factor, that the fact that gold went as much as 3,800 at a point, or 3,400 per ounce at a point in time, it's not government policy, right? The fact that cocoa prices, as at the time that we were leaving power, was around 8,800. Now it went to mark $11,000, okay, to a ton. It's not government policy.
Okay.
All right.
You've said a lot of things. I want to summarize it first for want of time. Yeah. You're saying that correlation and causation are not necessarily the same thing. So the fact that in the MDC's governance, the currency is strengthening does not mean that they are the ones behind it. You're saying we can conclude that there's obviously more supply of dollars, which is what we can say. And then you are saying that because this supply of dollars is because of reserves. You're talking about gold reserves. Is that what you're saying? Then you said the government has refused to pay people, therefore they are not spending. So if not spending is a policy, then it's a policy. Yeah. But you don't see that as a major policy. Then you say, for example, that we owe IPPs over $2 billion, which is exactly the same amount or thereabouts that the Gold Board claims to have raised
in a quarter.
In a quarter. So it's very clear to you that if the government was paying the energy people, there wouldn't be that money to back the dollar. And then, what was your last point? External factors. All right, so about 5 points. Since it's a debate, let me give you the chance to respond. I've summarized the points he makes. What's your response?
Yeah, thank you for that. But that's quite interesting. To even bring in, I could see Kabiru panting through to explain all of this and raking in. I don't know what he started an LLB program. I don't know what criminal law had to do with what we're discussing in terms of correlations and causality. But to look at all of this, when you say IPPs were owed $2.5 billion and government needed to probably pay off these things, I think Dr. Bawumia and Kabiru are arguing on the length and breadth of the fact that the IPPs are meant to be made a bullet payment of $2.1 billion, which he knows and understands that never happens in any economy. You spread it over a long period of time, which could spread into 2-3 years even of payment with agreement with. So if we have this thinking within the focus of this debate, that is very faulty to start with. Now, I heard about
So you are tackling the IPP first, that the payment is not supposed to be immediate.
It's not a bullet
the fact
payment.
That you owe 2 billion.
2 billion does not mean that 2 billion bullet payment should be made off to IPPs.
So that's your first one?
Yeah, that's my first one. Because if we want to contextualize that, that's a very faulty debate that has no basis to start with. He understands how government engages these and disperses these payments and the agreements. Management. They may even have to renegotiate contracts at some point whatsoever. Right. So to look at that figure in isolation to say this, within a photographic year, which is just 2025, we read a budget. Again, when they talk about not spending, Bernard and the good listeners, the big ticket items for any government that has inherited this particular government to do was to cater for the domestic debt exchange program, to make commitment to it. By making commitment to it, you are spending. If anyone says you're not spending, I don't know where this economics is coming from. We have an IMF program. You went on a spending spree on the bond market. All of this, the government has made strong commitments to and activated the sinking fund you dissipated, yet you say they are not commitment. I'm wondering what single policy it is that Dr. Kabiru and Dr. Bawumia understands, and one for a magic one to say that this is what the NDC government did as far as the stabilization of the Cedi is concerned. In any case, you look at all of this, what are the key variables to stabilizing the currency? They talk about the gold for oil program as though it was a novelty coming from them. In the wake, or in the run-up to, or post-COVID, when central banks in developing countries were trying to stabilize their reserves and get liquidity, that was the program they resorted to, having reserve-backed currencies, using gold. And if you went into this to say that you want to turn and pat yourselves at the back by saying that this is what you did, I think that again did not, because your central bank posted losses in a period where a bank uses the functionality of an instrument of moral suasion to determine that, and you had a governor saying that it amounted to nothing. Those were the whistles and bells of the economy. So these were the issues we had prior to. So we had a government that have inherited. We speak also as if we're speaking in a vacuum. We inherited an IMF program. The program has not even expired. There's no financial headroom to even do anything. So when you keep saying the government is not spending, when there is paper spending, when you go to, or a finance minister or head of the treasury goes to parliament to present a budget, the spending starts from there once the budget is approved. So when you and your boss say we are not spending, I don't know where that is actually coming from. The commitments that have been made, the appropriations that have been made, the disbursements that are yet to go is not spending. Come on, guys, what are we talking about? In any case, when your boss said he had locked the depreciation of the Cedi and given the keys to the IGP, why? What happened? When the economy was dissipated, we went to the IMF with your tails in between your legs. When you said you never go and have an IMF program. You put us in this situation. Let's compare inflation rates at the time. And even at the time you started gold for oil program. And now. So if 2.6 billion was accumulated by a gold program through the gold board, you expect that to be used as a bullet payment to pay government debtors. Come on, Kabiru. Which government functions within that confines? So I think that it's about time we really unpack these real issues to have. Today, Dr. Bawumia has the convenience. I'm surprised he's not going to Cote d'Ivoire. He's quoting the Kwacha, who tells you that he gleans, patrols around, and then fix or pick low-hanging fruits. We have neighboring Nigeria. How is the Naira doing? That's our next door neighbor, where we have Lagos, bigger than the economy of Accra. Why won't he go to Nigeria and make a comparison? He's traveling all the way to Zambia to make a comparison. When it was not Cedi, it was La Cote d'Ivoire. You can't go to La Cote d'Ivoire today because you think it don't favor the debate. So let's talk contextually. So with all of this happening, you found prudent spending. You found a precedent. And Bernard, there's something fundamental that has happened that we need to applaud this government. Quite often than not, the government treasury, which is a finance ministry, the central bank, and the executive arm of government, headed by the president, are always at loggerheads when it comes to stabilizing currency, right? Or having spending. This time around, three are all singing. Independent are singing from the same hymn book. Who tells you there's a coordinated effort? What single policy do you want again? You have a president, a central bank governor, and the head of treasury, which is the finance minister, singing from the same hymn book in terms of tightening budget. In any case, any prudent government, that is what is sought, which comes into office. The first budget, this is just a year's budget, fixed for a particular period of time, which is why I keep using the word photographic. So if you want to look at it and look at it as though it's a 4-year budget or an 8-year budget, you miss the debate. But look at the performance of it. Have you ever had this stability? It's changing by the minute basis. And look, your gold for oil program was sporadic, right? It was emulated from what was happening in certain developing economies. This is a program, the Gold Board program, backed by legislation. So investors see more confidence in it because it is backed by legislation. It has a board, among other issues. So if all of this are happening, yet you are asking that what has been done, when has a single policy been an answer to an economic problem? That is faulty, again, to start with, to start calling for a single policy that a government has done. It's very faulty. So they're trying to mix the debate. But for me, what I keep saying is that we are even not celebrating this. You're organizing press conferences left, right, center, talking about it. We have a 4-year mandate to deliver on the economy. These are just protein signs of it. That we are casually mentioning and saying that, okay, whatever we are doing is yielding some fruits. We're not celebrating it. There's no Kenke party at the precincts of the Treasury or Finance Ministry.
So let me take a break. When I come back, I will deal with reserves. The president himself has attributed the rebound of the Cedi to the robust foreign exchange inflows and deliberate policy measures that have been put in place, right? So that's the president speaking. So we'll deal with the issue of reserves, but we'll also put some facts out because I think we have a responsibility as a media to also put out what we know. So for example, we know that the Cedi has strengthened not just against the dollar, but even much more so against the euro and the pound. We do know that some African currencies have not done that well against the dollar. And then we also have charts of the gold reserve position of the country for at least the past 2.5 years. I think it will be important to put some of those points out to allow the debate to be richer. And then we'll call Professor Bokpin to give us the verdict after 2 rounds of debate. This is a live edition of The Point of View. Let's know what you think. Who's convincing you so far? Is it even a debate worth having? Because as one of the professors is saying, we should even wait for the thing to lengthen a bit. So we'll be back with more. Stay with us.
Excellent. Be that business owner that stands out and is very productive.
You're so confident. How do you do it?
It starts with Built. Where does your confidence come from? Paperwork made simple. Built takes all the hassle away. Yep, don't be like her. Built is your all-in-one simplified finance platform. It's your home for invoices, payments, your payroll, and so much more.
Oh, wow.
Grow your business today. Sign up now at built.africa. Download the Built app now.
Introducing Betway's Bet Influencer, a groundbreaking feature where you can make money by just sharing codes. He just needs to share his codes and make money. The more his codes are used, the more money he makes. Oh yes, so what are you waiting for? Anyone can be a bet influencer. Share your codes and make money. Bet Influencer, another world first from Betway.
This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Betway, get way more.
Hi, my name is Ochiame Kwame. I live at the plush Leisure Den Symphonic, a real estate property developed by Waymead Properties, the very developers of Vista Del Mare and the beautiful Alphabet City. So come with me to site. Let me introduce you to your new home, a gated community with 24-hour security in the heart of Sakomono. Behind me is going to be Willow Lane, where elegance will meet tranquility. You are going to be greeted with a 4-bedroom ensuite home with an elevator, swimming pool, children's playground, constant electricity, and many more. But wait, it gets even more interesting for early birds like you. You get a whopping $50,000 discount. Yes, I said $50,000 if you purchase between now and the end of this month. So call us now or visit us. Willow Lane, where elegance meets tranquility.
Remember who we are singing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We remember or her 20 ebitimi prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu na dia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi manichi Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home. Facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear wo system ni. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afa ma ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
By trade, investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship. This business forum is a testament to our joint commitment to repositioning our relationship on a more sustainable and mutually beneficial commercial footing. Under my leadership, Ghana embarks on a new era of industrial diversification, youth employment, and green transformation. And the role of strategic investors and innovative partnerships will be indispensable in this journey. When this administration assumed office in early 2025, Ghana was emerging from a period of fiscal distress, high inflation, and declining investor confidence. We had to take urgent steps with the presentation of a budget to Parliament that made a steep adjustment in the primary balance from negative 3.9% of GDP to positive 1.5% of GDP by the end of this year. These bold and targeted interventions are beginning to witness the early signs of economic recovery and renewed momentum. In 2024, GDP growth stood at 5.7%, driven mainly by mining, construction, and service sectors. Trends in Bank of Ghana's high-frequency real sector indicators point to a sustained pickup in economic activity at the end of the first quarter of 2025. The updated Real Composite Index of Economic Activity, which is abbreviated CIEA, recorded an annual growth of 2.3% in March 2025 compared to a growth of 1.0% for the corresponding period of 2024. International trade activities credit to the private sector by banks and construction activities contributed to the improvement in economic activity during this period. Inflation, which peaked at 23.8% at the end of 2024, has begun to ease, falling to 21.2% in April 2025. Largely due to moderation of both food and non-food inflation and prudent fiscal management. We're projecting to achieve single-digit inflation trajectory by middle of 2026. This will be underpinned by tighter monetary policy and complemented by fiscal consolidation and exchange rate stability.
So the president is attributing the strengthening of the Cedi largely to the effect of reserves. Now, reserves surged from $8.9 billion in December 2024 to $10.6 billion April 2025. He attributes the strong reserve position of the country, that's dollar reserves, to the currency appreciation. Now, if the chart behind me tells a very interesting story, right? The currency has been essentially stable around 15 up until maybe the 3rd week of April. And as we speak, the Cedi has strengthened by almost 18.4% against the US dollar year to date. So that's very significant. So the dollar is falling against the Cedi. This is what this chart shows. Now, take a careful look at this chart. If you compare this to the gold or the gold reserve chart, which I'm going to show you, there's a very interesting correlation there. So this is Theo Champon, right? Ghana's gold reserve holdings between May 2023 and April 2025, right? So you notice that the month-on-month change in gold reserves has been pretty high up until the end of 2024, all right? Now, what Theo Champon tells me is that we are now selling some of the gold to back the currency. So January, February, March, April, the month-on-month change in gold reserves has reduced. That suggests that the gold is now being put to work.
Yeah.
So the question is, should the person who began the reserve accumulation take the credit, or the person who's deploying the gold reserve to strengthen the currency take the credit? Right now? Because clearly, the reserve started building up during their time. But then the deployment of the reserve as a tool to support the currency, you can clearly tell, is in the new year. So this is what we've put out there as what we know. So I don't know what your comments are. So who's going to go on this reserve issue first?
Well, so first and foremost,
yeah,
I want to go because there was one reason why the government could not deploy fully the reserve to back the currency. The IMF conditionality capped it at $80 million per month.
The IMF conditionality cap what?
Cap the reserve, how much we can exploit or you can, if you like, use our reserve to back the currency.
Gold reserve or currency reserve?
No, the gold, I mean the foreign reserves, because there was a cap on the amount of which you have, the conditionality was that we should have 3 months, at least 3 months of import cover.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are depleted...
That's different to gold reserves.
No, no, I'm coming. Because the gold reserve is part of the foreign reserves.
I'm not saying it's not. So
that's what I'm saying.
That's what is quantified.
No, I'm coming to the point. So I'm coming to the point that the gold reserve is part of the foreign reserves. Mm-hmm. Now, we're supposed to have 3 months of import cover as part of the conditionality. Yeah. Now, if you are building the reserve to meet that particular threshold, you cannot be seen depleting it. It got to a point that it was even reduced to 60, that we can only liquidate at least $60 million per month. Until after the review program, but their time, when they came for the last SL, they lifted that particular conditionality. And if you read the statement even put out by the minority today, by the Honorable Minister for Finance, this point has been clearly stated. So that was the reason. Now, let's come to whether or not who should take the credit.
Let me understand you. You started accumulating gold reserves.
Yes.
But the IMF program did not allow you to sell the reserve to gain the actual dollar to back the currency.
Exactly.
This is your point.
Exactly, because we needed to do at least 3 months of import cover with the reserve as well of our store of value with the central bank. That was the reason why we could not liquidate that. Now,
so was it your intention to use it to support the currency?
Of course, the original idea of the Gold for Forest program was to use it to back. That said that when you are having some liquidity challenge, especially with the hard currency, the Bank of Ghana can auction. And that is what the Bank of Ghana did in paper.
So let me get this straight. So you are doing both a gold for reserve program and a gold for oil program?
Yes. So the gold for oil program was actually to take out the shock of about 500 million per month of demand from the market due to the importation of crude products into the country. Mm-hmm. And that was essentially using the gold as a butter for the crude oil.
Did the two programs run concurrently?
The two programs ran concurrently.
So how do you use gold in exchange for oil that you import, and at the same time build gold reserves? So, because you're saying the IMF didn't want you to liquidate your reserve. Yeah, yet the IMF will allow you to use your gold to buy oil.
So this was what was done. And fortunately, I happen to have served in one of the technical committees of the Gold for Oil program. Uh-huh. The international oil companies came in. They took gold in lieu of the product they imported. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that they would have to change it to dollar. They were taking the gold bars.
So it was barter trade?
Barter trade, kind of. Okay, it was a barter trade, kind of. Even though along the line, the IMF raised issues, which are different matter, probably we'll delve into another time.
So can we say that the gold for reserve program lasted longer than the gold for oil program?
So, right, so because the gold for oil program, even at a point, towards November, December, had virtually not been in operation. Okay. We had planned to increase the quantum of import or volume of import under the program, but the government couldn't do that because the IMF raised issue as the funding, because they had a view that you are actually putting in more, if you like, more Cedi into the currency, and they are looking at the viability of the funding of that particular program. So that was different. But let me even come to the point that you asked, because we've not answered the real question you asked, who should take the credit. It's like a father building wealth. And this wealth is bequeathed or is handed over by way of inheritance to the son. The son lives a good life. Do you say that by the fact that the son is now enjoying these particular riches that were bequeathed to him by the father, he should be taking credit? I'm sure that the one who built that particular wealth for the child to come and inherit should be the one taking the credit, even though for all. Admittedly, it's not that the child was a lazy child. I must concede. Okay, I must concede that the child was not a lazy child. Has also added some to the reserve, right? But what the child inherited is far more than 800 times of what he had accumulated. So clearly, I would think that in all sincerity, if you want to put where the credit is in terms of how we use the reserve to back the local currency and our ability to even auction as much, almost 600 million of in the month of April into the market. And you know one thing, I even raised it, and the minority again raised it. We believe that the amount that is even being pumped into the market is far more than 2 billion. Why? Because the gold reserve reports that between this particular period, the gold board reports that 2.7 billion is what they have exported by way of gold. Now, if you go to read the Bank of Ghana report, the Bank of Ghana has only added about 500 to their reserves, gold reserves, and they have auctioned about 600. That means that we are not able to account for 1.7 billion, whether it is either off balance sheet that they use it to support the currency, or the Bank of Ghana has, the gold board has not repatriated that particular money into the shores of the country.
So, but you are agreeing that gold proceeds and the gold board has gone up?
Yeah, so these are the factors why it has gone up.
No, but you need to agree first.
First, it has gone up.
So is that not a policy?
It's not a policy. I told you the external prices of gold from 30. But
the understanding of the gold board is that the gold board regulates the way the gold is traded. So when Mr. Jamie Jemfi came here, his point was that they couldn't tell who was exporting our gold, and we're not getting the effects. So I'm just explaining what you said. Yeah. So on the basis of what the gold board does, that it streamlines that, and that's why, in their view, the proceeds from gold are higher.
It's not true. Let me tell you why it's not true. There was gold purchase program before the coming into office of the gold board. The gold board started operation in April, just 1 month. Now, there was a vehicle. That is the Precious Mineral Marketing Company started the gold purchase program way before the NDC came to office.
Were we retaining the proceeds?
Yes. Let me explain. Under the program, I was part of a meeting. Chambers of Mines came to the office. It was agreed that the large-scale mining companies should sell 20% of their mine product to the Precious Mineral Marketing Company, whilst all small-scale mining company would sell. And that the government reserved the right to even buy every gold in line with the preemption right. Right? This was the agreement. But because the Cedi was going to be used to fund the purchase of the gold anyway, the bank have this particular hesitation that you are going to be pumping more and you are going to cause the depreciation of the Cedi, or inflation, sorry. You are going to increase the heat on the economy. So that was what was in operation. Admittedly, if the NDC government exports 1 million ton of gold, they are going to get more revenue than we got, even if we exported the same amount. Because the price has gone up.
No, but there was a period in Ghana where the amount of gold exported to Switzerland versus the amount that we said we had sold, the numbers were different.
I agree. And let me tell you why. The reason why we initiated this program was that we said that if we did it, it's going to stop smuggling. And the same argument, unfortunately, again, when the Gold Board bill came, working with the Finance Committee, we had the responsibility of looking at it. The same argument were advanced, right, to support the point that if we bring every gold mine into the umbrella of the Gold Board, it's not possible for anyone to export gold or to deal in the marketing and trading of gold without the licenses from the Gold Board. The only new thing that the Gold Board has done is to monopolize the process.
Okay.
That's the only new thing. That means that there is now one avenue through which you can sell gold. Hitherto, you had different, licensing regime where people could export gold. But even within the current region, there's still smuggling of gold.
All right. Let me let
because recently
I want you to comment on the question I asked about the chart, that the gold reserve accumulation happened from May 2023 till end of 2024.
Yeah.
The net accumulation has reduced because there's obviously the gold being now used to support the currency in terms of the sale of gold. This is what this chart is saying. So what I'm saying is that should we credit the NDC for deploying the gold to support the currency by reserve, or should we credit the MPP for the one to build the reserve?
I'm trying to answer this without you being tagged as political or trying to send a political message. Why am I doing this?
Okay.
Right, the accumulation of it, which Kabiru concedes to, that the IMF couldn't allow them to deplete a certain level of it.
Yes.
Right? So that credit goes to the IMF because at the time, they had depleted the reserves. With the IMF coming in, they put a watchman at the central bank. So the IMF brought in discipline to the central bank. And the discipline the IMF brought was by not allowing them. They had the appetite. They would have gone ahead to dissipate it, meaning the economy would still have gone very bad. But the IMF tightened it, not them. So that credit is not theirs. It's an IMF program, and that credit goes to the IMF. We come in, renegotiate, and we're in a position to deploy because we have given investor confidence. Right? They were having, as I said, erratic measures in terms of even the gold program. Right? But I don't know why we are even just fixated on gold alone, when a basket of issues come together to build inflation or to build reserves, among other issues, or currency strengthening. It's more than that. Gold is just one of the minute aspects of it. But because we are having a confines with this, as far as gold is concerned, what I'm saying is that it's an IMF program you benefited from, the discipline of the IMF, not you. Because you had run the economy amok, sent everything negative, put us in a junk status. Our reserves were depleted. So the IMF, as part of the program and its measures, needed to grow back these reserves at a point to which they would free that. The confidence which we had, and we went to the table with them, they say, okay, well, you have a new government in place. They seem too confident. The president has injected confidence into the economy. The finance minister started by injecting confidence into the economy through his vetting. When he made commitments to domestic jet exchange program, you see, in this country, Bernard, at the time, blue chip investments, such as pensions, were touched. Right? That's how bad the economy was. Cocoa syndicated loans that nobody cracked a sweat in accessing. We went to the cocoa syndicated market, we couldn't syndicate. What does that tell you? Trade surpluses, and that plays a role as far as currency issues are concerned. So if we've stabilized all of this. We have heralded how stability could be through a prudent and tight budget, and a president who is calling for prudence among his appointees, expenditure issues among others. Right, that tells you the kind of confidence, and he knows what confidence can do into an economy. Before we came in, what was happening? People were shying away, thanks to the DDEP. People were shying away from the banks. Have a conversation, anecdotally, with investors. That investor confidence is back here. And when they talk about spending, that we have not spent and what single policy, Bernard, the very day a government presents its budget to Parliament, investors starts making decisions based on that budget. So what kind of expenditure are we talking about? Planners start making. So as part of their planning, they factor all of this in. So when we say this has not happened, as though people are going to hold money for the next 12 months and not commit to a budget they've presented to the good people of Ghana and, for that matter, Parliament. So I think that argument is neither here nor there. But if you're talking about who should take credit, the IMF has a credit to take.
There's actually an interesting chart we have that shows that the currency is much stronger generally join IMF programs than non-IMF programs. If I have the time, I'll show it. It's something my friend from Black Star did, which we would like to show. I'd like to take a short break. When I come back, I'll bring in Professor Bofred Bokbin to try and see if he has a view on this, where the currency strengthening is coming from. The president has said the reserve position has been responsible. Of course, prior to the NDC coming into office, the reserves had been built. Now he's saying that they were not allowed to use the reserves or NDC government is saying that these guys were allowed to use their reserves because of the fiscal indiscipline that had been occasioned by their spending. And therefore, with the renegotiated or tweaked IMF program, if there's anything like that, they are able to deploy it. So we'll let the chips fall where they may. We'll come back and try and see if we can get some resolution on the key issues. But I think the more important question is, what must be done to also ensure that this does not remain a 9-day wonder? And I think that's the question most people are asking. And how strong will the currency be before things begin to even out? Stay with us.
Has it in a wide position, so what's next?
Ronaldo. This could be. There's still danger here.
Goal! Goal! In 1924, my grandpa was a champion. 2024, Meso is a champion.
Hey, digital champion. It's about the end.
Digital champion, what can't TV shop online?
Let me help you get what you need from Enterprise now.
It's this simple. I just log into my Enterprise account using the Enterprise Self-Service Portal. Then, I just click on this button for their new Advantage Point Loyalty Scheme. Then, boom, the fun begins. Wow. Yes, once I start making purchases under any subsidiary, I can now earn a lot of points and redeem it as airtime, Momo, and more.
Hey, customers only.
I don't know, Kutio. Even on your birthday,
You earn points.
yes. Even when you like and share on the portal,
You earn points.
yes.
Purchase an enterprise policy today to enjoy this exclusive offer and start earning rewards. Because nothing you do should be pointless.
Oh, then redeem Momo your points and send to me.
Hey, Mr. Digital Champion.
Enterprise, your advantage.
Introducing Betway's Bet Influencer, a groundbreaking feature where you can make money by just sharing codes. He just needs to share his codes and make money. The more his codes are used, the more money he makes. Oh yes, so what are you waiting for? Anyone can be a bet influencer. Share your codes and make money. Bet Influencer, another world first from Betway.
This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Betway, get way more.
Life is a celebration of moments. Big and small.
The sun is scorching, I'm feeling the heat.
With Piva Drink, every moment becomes a refreshing celebration. From the beach to your home, in every corner of your world. Piva Drink at a burst of refreshment.
Give me Piva cocktail and tangerine.
Celebrate every moment with Piva Drink. Refreshment for every occasion. Piva Drink, a taste you will love.
P for Piva.
This advert is FDA approved.
By trade.
Welcome back. So tonight we're trying to see if we can get some clarity on what is behind the Cedi's appreciation. And I think the president gave us a clue when he spoke about the reserves. So that suggests that because gold, Ghana is actually Africa's largest producer of gold now, and gold is doing very well. If you can build up more reserves, we will have enough buffer to strengthen the currency. Okay. The CEO of the Gold Board has been putting out some information about the currency, and he's tracing what he calls a strong uptick in forex availability due to the increase in gold proceeds. He actually shared a data set with us. If I have that, I'll show it to you quickly. It's basically showing the amount of gold we've exported, how much money we've made from it in the past few months, to emphasize the position that the gold board has also played a role in the accumulation of forex. So that's an interesting one. I wanted to also show you two quick things. One had to do with the performance of the currency under IMF programs and under non-IMF programs, to try and see if we can get some clarity there. It seems as if generally when we have IMF programs, our currency tends to do better than when we don't have IMF programs. Whether that's just a signal to the market or whether there's actually some organic policy choices the IMF helps us to make, the jury is still out there. There's also a chart we'll show you quickly on which quarter is the best for the currency. We showed this in our previous show. So clearly Q4 is the best for the currency, followed by Q2. So does that mean that what's happening is just quarterly? These things are important for us to have a proper sense. So team, if you have some of these charts, put them up for me, and then I'll bring up Professor Bokwin. I also like to read a few quick comments.
I have not seen that chart, but I'm quite curious.
Yeah.
With the chart that says that IMF programs tend to have currencies performing.
Generally.
Is it the first quarter or the second quarter of the end of the program, the start of the program?
So this is what Black Star did for me. Our currency has been relatively more stable under the IMF than not. So the peak May 2003 to October 2006, the first Q4 period. All right. Green tells you that the currency is over the period, its performance against the US dollar. Then July 2009 to July 2012 as well under an IMF program. April 2015 to April 2019 as well. All right. Now, if you take the red, these are non-IMF program periods, and it's done the narration there. So generally, if you take for the past 25 years, the currency tends to depreciate more when we are not doing IMF programs than when we are doing IMF programs. This is what they put out there, which we cannot contest, right?
Is that December 2022 to December 2024?
Yes.
Right.
So generally, the red tells you that the depreciation is more than the green. So the green doesn't mean it's appreciated. It just tells you that there's less depreciation. All of it is depreciating. Yeah. But basically, the red is telling you that in non-IMF programs or in non-IMF periods, we depreciate more generally than when we are under IMF program. We tend to agree with what you said, that maybe when the IMF program started, they sort of put in some checks.
Yes.
And therefore, we could not...
But there's a watchman at the central bank, as I said.
Give me the quarterly chart as well, because the currency started appreciating...
This one, you want to give it to the IMF.
In April. The currency started appreciating in April.
You want to give it to the IMF.
Please put the quarterly chart for me. In April. Now, April is Q2. All right? This is an interesting one as well, and I think it will interest you. So we've picked 2025, 2025, 5-year period. All right. Now, generally, red means depreciation. Green means appreciation. So typically, Q4 for 2020, Q4s are the best for the currency, followed by Q2s. So that, of course, Q1 ends with March, where a lot of repatriation happens with the companies that pay dividends. So we don't know if there's what we are experiencing will continue to Q3. All right? It started in April, which is Q2. May is Q2. June is probably going to be Q2. So let's see if July also happens. I'm putting this out there for people to see that there are many dynamics at play.
This even didn't start in April. The depreciation we are seeing.
The appreciation.
The appreciation we are seeing, in fact, didn't start in...
When did it start?
It started in the first of May. As of 29th April, we are doing an exchange rate of 14.7. Okay, as of 29th of April. So basically, it's the last 2 weeks.
No, but if the average the average in January to March was about 15.
No, it wasn't about 15, because as of January, when we were handing over, it was 14.7. It went up to 15.5.6.
No, we can even show that.
Yeah, we can show that. It went up to 15. So the government actually took over from 14.7 15.7.
No, between 14 and 15, Kabir, was no stability.
No,
it was fluctuating, so we cannot take.
I'm saying that the end of.
We're talking about when we had stability.
Please put the BOG city to dollar rates
is changing every day.
Put the
changing every day. We're saying,
gentlemen, we don't need to argue about this. Put the city to dollar rate. I just want to be clear. The city to dollar rate chart that City News put together. This is BOG data. If you can find that for me, what I have is that the February was 15.5. March 15.54.
January.
January of 15.3.
So where's your 14 coming?
No, January.
No, so he's right. So let's start this way. October 16.3. November 15.28.
Yes.
December 14.71. But then January went back to 15.31. February up to 15.5.
Yeah.
March 15.5.
So December figure was what we handed over.
No, but you were saying you handed over. We didn't
Wait,
hand
we
over.
handed over in January.
How do you hand over a December figure?
No, we handed over us at the end of December. No, because we handed in 7th January.
Who hands over a currency?
I said we handed at the time we were handing over.
So this is a chart. So this is a chart.
What I'm saying is that who hands over a
let's be clear. So Kabiru,
we are not making argument about these are facts that are.
So October, it peaked in October 16.3, November 15.28, December 14.71. January 15.31.
Which one was in?
When did you hand over power? You handed over power in January. So if you are talking about handing over something to rest, but what I'm saying is that in any case,
and this is average for the month.
This is average for the month. Hand over.
Yes, this is average for the month.
Yes. No, the point is that
you don't hand over
at the end of January, the figure was 15.5. Which government party?
What we have is 15.3.
No,
then February 15.5.
Yes. So
March. Hold on. February and March was the same. 15.5 for 15.5.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm making the
point. Then April 14.16.
Bernard,
May.
I get the point.
12.
I'm making the point that, and it's a statement of fact that as at the time the MPP handed over, the exchange rate was 14.7.
Okay.
That is a statement of fact. And I'm saying that from 14.7, it was increasing, which the graph clearly shows, went as high as 15.54 before started declining. And I'm making the point again that as at 29th of April, and if you take the average for that month, it will be doing something like 14.16. Okay, as at the 29th of April, the exchange rate was 14.7 thereabout. And I'm making the point that the depreciation we are seeing was started in April, 1st April. That's the point I'm making.
The appreciation.
The appreciation, sorry. The appreciation of the currency we're making. It started in April. Okay, the end of April, towards the last.
So you can say that's 3 months into Mahama's government.
Exactly.
After his budget.
Yes.
So can you not say that if it started in April, which is after his budget in March, then you can say that it was based on because don't forget. No, just a second.
No, let me make
when we spoke to Theo Echampo, he said that there were a number of factors. Fiscally, the budget presented discipline. It sent a signal to the market. Monetary-wise, the central bank is doing the FX thing. And he's saying the two align. So my point is that if we give 3 months after the administration, their first budget is read, and then the currency begins to strengthen, can you not, based on your question about correlation, say that at least after 3 months, there's some correlation in the coming down, right?
So this is the catch. After the budget was presented, clearly, there's going to be confidence, even when a new government is voted. And if you remember, when Bawumia made a statement that the dollar has been arrested, which month was it? March or so, March, April.
Of
2021.
Not
2021, not 2020. What, immediately after the election, when the...
Sorry, why didn't you go for
was that the first time or the second term?
That was the second time. That was the second. That was the first time.
No, I'm talking. Was it in Akufo-Addo's first term?
That was Akufo-Addo's. Second term after the elections.
Okay.
In fact, after the election, that was the point he made that statement that the dollar has been arrested and the key handed over to the IGP.
So this was in 2021.
You get the point.
What happened in the first term?
No, I'm making the point. I'm building the point. I'm telling you that there's that cycle. That cycle. And if you go to the history of the currency movement, you understand that. But I'm saying that the effect may differ depending on the underlying factors. That is why I'm saying that the level of appreciation may differ based on how much reserve you've accumulated, based on how your external market or secondary sector is performing. So when you put all those factors into the analysis, you will definitely not have the same situation like we had in the Nana Akufo-Addo government.
Okay.
That's the first point I'm making. Again, if you look at the currency, it is not the case that the MPP handed a currency that was not stable. At least we can give credit. If they want to take the full credit, we can say that, okay, it is appreciating. The currency is appreciating against the dollar. Now, from the 1st of May all the way to 20th of May for the last 3 weeks. But it is also the case that the Cedi went as much as 16 and the government started bringing that from November. If you check the history if you look at the graph from November 2024, the Cedi was on a downward and a stability trend. Okay, so it wasn't that the Cedi was in crisis, as it were, when the MPP government handed over to the...
So, Kabi, you look at it, May 2024, 14.13, rises all the way to 16.3 in October.
Yes.
Comes down to 14.71
exactly
in December.
Yes.
Climbs to 15.5,
exactly.
Peaks there, and then...
So this is the catch. If you follow this particular trend, one could say that the MPP government was bringing this particular figure on a downward trend before it left office. There's no conclusion you can make but to say that. Just on this graph.
The IMF
that
program.
Whatever the program is the IMF program you are still in. So if you are talking about IMF, as if you are...
So that's true. So what you are saying is the trend was
coming
down. But what accounts for the steep... Because this is almost unprecedented.
Good.
Yes. The steepness of the...
So the steepness of the... That's what I'm saying, that we cannot say one factor. One is mention IMF program. Again, it is still in play. They are not out of the IMF program yet. The IMF program brings discipline. It brings fiscal, austerity.
Yeah,
that is a factor. But again, the most important correlates of this analysis is the foreign reserves. And the president himself admitted. And I'm surprised my brother is saying that the reserve is not the goal, reserve is not playing a policy. The finance minister himself has admitted, the central bank has admitted that the foreign reserve position of the country is one important factor. Aside that, the fact that your major exports are doing well is adding to the foreign reserve position. At a time that you are even accumulating gold and cocoa is not performing, you don't expect the Cedi to have a steep appreciation. Okay, but here you're having gold performing, you're having cocoa performing, you're having fiscal consolidation, you're having IMF program in the country, you're having United States, external factors favoring you. Virtually every single factor favoring you at that moment will make your currency perform. But assuming that our reserves were going up, but the United States currency was performing, we will struggle. We may have stability. We will not have a sharp appreciation. We will only maintain a stability. Assuming we were doing gold right and cocoa prices were look, let me give you an example. At the time that cocoa and gold crude oil prices were not performing, we experienced some difficulty. Okay? We experienced that difficulty, even though external factors were also conspiring against the government. So when you have multiplicity of factors, all of them working to your advantage, you can take the credit, of course, because that's what you want. But you will see that every single factor,
just wanted to show you that
and internally are working in favor of the government.
Just a quick one to just add to the discussion for listeners to view. So the gold chart I have there is gold exports from January 2023 to April 2025. Gold assets and exports. So on the left side of the column will be the weight in gold and the value on the right. So the value is obviously in terms of price. So the weight is the more important thing to look at. It's quite significant that December ended at 4.2 million. All right. Then you go to weight in January 2025, 6.1, February 6.6, March 8.2, April 9.2. So there is an uptick in the value of gold being assayed and exported in the new administration as well.
Because every single gold now is now by the gold board. Before, we had other entities exporting.
So you couldn't record it, you could also not harness the forex. So is that not a policy then of the government?
The point we are making is that it is a policy to monopolize the gold receipt.
Is monopoly the right word to use for such a program?
But
I'm just thinking, like,
maybe,
in the right
policy,
maybe
to nationalize,
to monopolize.
No, the word is monopoly because we are talking of a comparative world where free market operations are allowed, where the ingenuity of the individual is supposed to be promoted. But in this case, in the gold space, it is not allowed. And so the reservation we had against the gold board was partly because of that.
But the aggregators, what are the aggregators for?
Your aggregator people have different value chain in the operation. Yes. Some people do the mining, some people make business through the exportation.
But
so you can't say that
a country like Ghana harness its resources to strengthen its currency?
Rightly so, and you can do that by promoting private enterprise at the same time announcing the receipt. For instance, this particular process, one of the downsides is that it's going to also promote smuggling. That's one of the downsides. Reason why do I say so? Now, I'll feel like, okay, if I have gold, and that's what the national security, the point of the national security have now started busting people. If I feel like the gold that they are going to purchase, even though they purchase it at the market price in Cedi equivalent, that I need the gold. If I'm able to get it out, I'm going to get more returns. I can keep my forest because I also need the forest. People will have the incentive to export it. But if you make provision for them to play within the value chain, virtually, there will be incentive for them to not smuggle the gold. And official recourse will make provision for that. So clearly, the gold board, people attribute it, and I'll make this point finally. You see, they say, oh, everything gold board, the gold board. And now I heard my brother Sami Jeffrey making that point. And we had to correct it, that the gold board only started in April. The marketing and then export of gold started from the chart. January, February, March, it was increasing. It means that every month, and also,
so just point of correction, Bawumia's point about arresting the Cedi was in 2017.
Kabiru
2017. Sorry.
It wasn't 2020.
That's the first time. I mean, we made the first time.
I need to make that point.
Yeah, so
April,
we got the date right.
April 17, 2017.
Exactly.
We've arrested the Cedi in 100 days and given the keys to the IGP.
Exactly the same period.
You were cherry picking to the extent that you forgot when
I said the first time. I made
I think you probably accidentally said
I got the date wrong, but I said the first term, like the Mahama.
So 2017.
2017.
And what happened in 2020?
No, we're not talking about. We are talking of the time days. If you don't be making political comments on this, you are making political. So this is the point we need to make. This is the point we need to make. So this whole discussion about gold prices going up. One, look. Given this particular process, we have to determine whether or not it's because now large-scale mining companies are now obliged to sell to the gold board. Okay, that could be accounting for the jump by over 1 million in the weight, difference about 1 million in the gold weight or the quantum of gold that is now to the gold board. But assuming that the same arrangement does not work, it also means that this is the quantum of gold we are now producing within the country. But there are
small-scale
gold. But there are a lot of illegal mining activity ongoing. As part of the gold board mandate was to make sure that responsible mining, in fact, it would put it as a clause in the gold board bill that the responsible sourcing of the gold was a provision in the gold board act. Are they able to then get all the Galamsey people that are the mining that is ongoing on? Because we know for a fact that Galamsey is ongoing. How are we treating that? Is the gold board telling us that that gold is now also part of the gold they are now exporting? Okay, so basically, we are still having the smuggling of gold within the country. And the fact that we are now trying to say that the gold board being introduced should then be a policy. It has not achieved the policy objective, so to call. But we can give them the credit to the effect that, well, quantities of gold export are increasing. At the same time, it is corresponding with an increase in the world market price of gold. So they are cashing in on both ends, the price and then the quantity end. And this is a double gain for them. And if those are contributing to the increase in the Cedi, the appreciation of the Cedi, one will understand. But the gold board is not the panacea because gold purchase program predates the gold board. The panacea is the gold for forex, and that predated the gold board. And I think that point has to be forcefully made.
Respond.
Bernard, can I remind Kabiru that Russia-Ukraine is still ongoing? So if he's talking about external factors, he may probably want to factor that in. But we are not even bringing Russia-Ukraine into the equation. So with this whole external factors of the dollar, and your boss is happy to cherry pick from the Zambian kwacha, among other issues, when he could talk about Nigeria. Today, he doesn't want to talk about Ivory Coast. But in any case, when we talk about, look, we have a very unique IMF program, Bernard, and that's what I want us to contextualize. An IMF program that we inherited, where blue chip investments such as pensions were attached. We have a domestic debt exchange program Right, we went to the borrowing spree. Look how much we raked in debt, in reckless debt, such that we were rated to junk status at the time we took over the economy. So you have all of this. And I keep saying that, look, there's something fundamental and unique about this IMF program again. Quite often than not, when you have an IMF program, in the very long time, or probably first time in our history, Bernard, when you have two big items to benefit. That's playing the watchman status and the financial discipline, which we are giving credit to, which Kabiru, I believe, agrees to. Then, when the money hits the central bank's kitty, under this IMF program, we were missing disbursements. Why? Because we're not missing. The money didn't come in the dates to which they said they were. It's on record. Bernard. So if that money.
Bernard, this one you can fact check.
Yeah, fact check it.
It's not true.
Oh, look, there was no point that they said an IMF money was hitting the central bank's kitty. Disbursement was going to be made, and it never happened.
IMF program is based on staff level.
No, when you have
first.
no, when you have,
but when you make a statement of this nature, I expect probably because he's been following.
Yeah, so let me land there when you have your
agreement, and the board has not approved and it delays the board delays a meeting. And the fund did not, doesn't come at the day appointed. You can't say they have missed it.
Okay, you finish up.
That's the point
we were missing these dates. And when you miss these dates, what happens is that you have people to say, okay, well, once the money hits the central bank's kitty, this is what we're going to do, X, Y, Z, to go with our forex to invest in the market. It happened, nothing happened. So investor confidence was lost under an IMF program. So if a new government comes in and inherits such a program, and you have a Mahama Atuforsen economy that is putting, financial discipline, tightening of the budget, among other issues, to actually herald that. When we talk about the gold board, there's something fundamental we are missing. You were having sporadic issues, right? Erratic sales and purchase of gold, among other issues. We have legislated it in the formation of the gold board by cladding it with law, going to Parliament to approve that, among other issues. The gold board, as we speak today, has a board. So what gives confidence to an economy than what we have given? And what you talk about, every day you use negative words against the gold board. You were here talking about monopolization, talking about smuggle.
He himself said it. So this, don't
right?
Say,
no, but you like to use it in a negative sense.
A simple estate monopoly of trading. So that is what.
No, but you are using it in a negative. No, I'm coming here.
I was trying to go by your direction that I shouldn't use it, and that's why I say maybe let's say nationalization. But Semi Jeffrey himself has used a monopoly.
When we talk about it, we're talking about aggregators within the value chain, it's a whole value chain. You talk about smuggling, as though you've quantified the amount of smuggling that is happening. Because the gold board, as you see, is advocating for fair trade gold. Right? And what's fair trade gold? How do you have Galamsey gold coming into fair trade gold? You ask a question. It rather cures the Galamsey problem because they will struggle to sell their gold.
Let me read a few comments.
Right? Would someone from Galamsey come to sell gold to the gold board and have it being bought from them? No. So it rather cures the Galamsey problem. So I don't know where all of this is coming from. But has the gold board played a significant role? Yes, effectively. Because one, there's legislation, there's a board. So what it means is that we have established a stamp of authority within the gold regime that had longevity. And that's what we're looking at. That's what the market wants.
Let me read a few comments. Bernard, good evening. I don't get what the MPP rep is saying. He says gold board started in April and dollar started appreciating in May. But he can't attribute the Cedi appreciation to the gold board policy. Isn't he contradicting himself? I think it will be best if MPP stop commenting on the improving economy now till the NDC begins to mess up. Mahama's economy is doing better so far. Another one, Bernard, the same Dr. Bawumia who in 2017, within the space of 100 days, trumpeted he and his boss-led government success vis-a-vis Cedi performance, but the same Dr. Bawumia is today saying there's a different government and DM can't take credit for the unprecedented appreciation of the Cedi. Where's the principle and where's the logic? What positive effects did his implemented policies have on the Cedi and the economy at large for the 8 years he was EMT head? What was the exchange rate when the 30 tons of gold reserves he built? Let's not forget the building gold reserves long started before Bawumia ascended the throne of vice president. More comments coming through on the program. Just give me a minute to push them through. What are Ghanaians interested in? Results or how we got the results we've got? How about fuel reserves? Yes, MPP left behind. Are they taking ownership of Doomsor too? Interesting one. Jennifer Abe says, kindly ask Doc whose budget was being used in the first quarter. So how can you say you handed over in December? Interesting one. And Jomado Richard, Kabiru and Bawumia said he arrested the dollar in their first term. You took this currency from 4 to 17 and you are here making noise. You are not getting a lot of love this morning. Well, let me read a few more for you this morning. Dr. Kabiru, I'm watching you live from KNUST. Keep up the good work. Al-Hassan Mashoud from Mankesim. And then Samochirifo Asiedu, it's one thing to have resources in abundance, and it's another thing to know how to use your resources for the benefit of your people. Why is Africa underdeveloped? Is because we have not used our resources well. All right. To wrap up the show, I just want to give you a minute each to make your closing argument. So if I hear you right, if there's any credit to be gotten at all, it's to be shared for the reserve accumulator. For you, that's what you're saying.
So the point I'm making is that if we so conclusively decided that the major driver of our currency appreciation is the reserve, then 80% of the credit would have to come to the New Patriotic Party, because 80% of the gold reserves were accumulated by the New Patriotic Party. And I heard someone saying they started predated before Bawumia. True, we only had 8 tons since independence of gold. So if there was, even that was, the NDC government did not even add a single ton of gold to that reserve. Okay, so now they are learning from the New Patriotic Party. They are now adding some tons. That's okay. So the point is that if we so conclusively decided that the reserve is playing a greater role, 80% of that credit has to go to the MPP. Again, if the external factors we are talking about, if you mention that, oh, there's Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war, there is no COVID, they are not even mentioning it. But COVID was a factor. Mr. John Mahama even mentioned it, even in his external engagement. Other ministers of state, even now they have assumed office, they have admitted that it was a factor. There is the normalization. Whenever there's a pandemic, trade disruption will happen, but people will begin to normalize and trade will pick up. So you don't say that it is still there. It means that countries don't adjust. When it hits, it will have effect in the short to medium term before countries begin to normalize, because they begin to live. So people don't go citing Russia-Ukraine war to back the point that it is still there and that things are doing better. Even for these particular gains we are seeing from the gold, it will get to a time that it will become normal that if other factors begin to play, the gold that is benefiting now will not benefit us in the future because other factors are more heavier in weight than the effect. So largely, the MPP should be given credit. Admittedly, the NDC is the one in the realm of affairs, and I will be fair to say that they have also done certain things, and that credit could also be given to them. For instance, they are not spending, and when they are not spending, that amounts to fiscal consolidation, and fiscal consolidation takes discipline to do. And I would be fair and to give them the credit on that. But you cannot.
You have a minute and a half.
Kabiru talking about not spending and using the example of a rich father. The rich father is the prodigal son who went to the IMF with a tail in between his legs and back and has been accepted by the father. Well, you talk about all of these things and with mountains of debts to pay. How do you become a rich father by that? So here's what it is. You talk about, I heard Dr. Bawumia and Dr. Kabiru talking about a ton of gold has not been added. I would borrow your own words. This is where your causation and causalities play a role, as if the tonnage of reserves of gold in a central bank's reserve has a correlation to currency performance. No, it doesn't work that way. So people have to look at whether a tonnage is about the sustainability of the policy and the indication. But you see, if it President Mahama in managing this economy, right, in how he realigns ministry, even gives confidence to the economy. Now we talk about trade surpluses play an integral role when it comes to currency balancing and economy, among other issues. What did he do? He reconfigured the trade ministry to be trade and agribusiness. How important it is. You go to see what energy, right, where the green revolution is playing a big role, where green transitions has become part of the energy ministry. You go to where the telecommunications ministry, right, where you have digitalization, among other innovative issues, playing a role because of what? The new age that we are coming into. So all of this are clear indications that the President Mahama administration is focused, is harnessing the potentials of what could indicate a global economy, and that's the confidence that we're having reflect in today.
Thank you very much.
And the Gold Board has come to stay, and it will be very effective at driving the economy as far as these issues
Professor
are concerned.
Sharif Khalid is the economic policy advisor to the current vice president, who we know will be in town this week. And Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru Mahama is MP for Wali Wali. He used to be the economic advisor to the former vice president. Now he's busy in parliament. We could not get Professor Bokin to join us. He had some difficulty, although he had earlier on agreed to join us. But we thank you for watching. Hope you've learned something new. And let's all pray the currency strengthening continues. That's what we all want. We'll see you next time. My name is Bernard Avile. Good night.